In chapter 6, we are going to discuss the container data structures, and we start with strings, which is also a container for individual characters. And we are going to discuss lists and tables together, as well as dictionaries and sets. They are going to be discussed together. They have common methods and operations. So let's begin with these strings. They're just lists or tuples of characters in Python, although not correspond to the same container structure, but the behavior is similar. So we can simply access an individual character in a string using the access operator by providing an index value. So if you want to retrieve the character at position 3, which is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, it's going to return us the small e. Okay, so the position 0 contains the capital C, position 1 holds the small m, and position 3 has the value e. Also, when you have special characters in your string, such as this case, and a space is also an individual symbol, but these characters, which are escaped by a backslash, they consume a single slot in your string. So if you want to print each character in your course, you can also use the in operator for iterating over a collection when used inside a for loop. As you would recall that in is used for checking whether something is inside a collection when you use it inside an if clause. If something in a collection, it's going to check whether this is present inside this one when you use it with the if. But when you use it with the for, it's going to iterate, okay, this one, starting from the first element, assigning it to this one, doing the operations, assigning the second one from the collection, repeating the operations, etc. So the in operator has a different use when used inside if and when used inside for. If you want to display each character individually from your string, the course variable, it's going to print the character and add the new line as the default behavior of the print function. It's going to display each symbol in a separate line. Let's just modify this example. Switch the code. So I have this okay. Let's add something else after this one. Let me add this new line and a dot. So when we count the symbols, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I ask for the character at position 10, it's going to return me the dot. Okay, although I seemingly have two symbols in my string, this is the single character, the single symbol. Okay, it's just a new line character. When you look at the memory of your computer, you're going to see a single entry for n, \n, so the new line, and another single entry for the character C. So they're going to both consume the same amount of space. When you iterate over this string of yours, let's say your string is stored here, C, M, P, E. So they are all going to consume the same amount of space, \n, and another space, and then we have this dot. So this is the 0, 1, 2, 3. We have 150 here somewhere in between. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10th location corresponds to this dot, and this is not counted. Similarly, the escape backslash is not counted for the backslash itself. And when you print them, it's going to output one by one. Also, you can count the length of your string. That's going to return 12 in this case. So there are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 symbols, including the spaces and the special characters. And it's going to return the output. Okay, the course does not match 150. This special use of in is that whether 150 is inside the course, if it can find it. So the course contains this value, CMP 150. If 150 is in course, it says the course code matches 150. If 250 not in course, course does not match 250. So if it cannot find 250 in course, okay, which is true because it's containing 150 but not 250, so it checks whether it's present and reverses or negates the result. If this is not in course, it's going to evaluate to true because 250 is not present in this string, and it's going to execute this line as well. And okay, when we use the in operator with the if and for, as you would remember that this in here is going to retrieve the characters one by one, assign them to this variable here, loop variable, and it's going to display them. For the if case, it's going to check whether this thing is present inside the other one, inside the other operand. So the use of the in operator is different depending on the context. An important operator is the slicing operator. It's similar to the access operator, but here you can provide the upper and lower bounds for retrieving sub-containers. When you use it with strings, you're going to receive substrings. If you use it with lists, you're going to receive a sub-list, and so on. So you use this operator by providing a lower bound and then upper bound. For instance, my string starts with a space, and if I want to receive the characters from my string between 1 and 13, let's see the result first. It's going to retrieve me, it's going to bring introduction because the character at position 1 is I. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It doesn't include 13, so it's up to 13. Starts from 1 inclusive and 13 is exclusive. So if I do it, if I modify the code, Let me just modify the code with adding some boundary here that doesn't include the pipe symbol. Okay, as you can see, I have a pipe symbol attached to the n at position 13. This is not included in my output. So this slicing operator, similar to the access operator, lower bound, colon, upper bound, but this is not included. Okay, think of this as the mathematical expression. This is included, but this is not included. But the operator itself is in fact like this: LB, UB, upper bound. If you don't specify the lower bound, it's going to be 0. If you don't specify the upper bound, it's going to be length of the container. So this is the item we are trying to iterate over. We are trying to get a slice from. So it's going to be the last item, or the length of this collection. So it's going to return one less of the length, and going to include this entire sequence starting from 16. So this is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think it's going to output programming for this line. Okay, so it has output already the programming. And let me check the content once again if I'm missing anything. Introduction. Okay, so these are the detailed explanations. And I have this social security number. You might want to cover some part of the number and not display it directly. So depending on the strategy you are trying to apply, you might either want to cover the first few letters, okay, or you might want to modify this in a way that you can cover some portion in the middle, or cover numbers from both beginning and after some portion in the middle. So you might want to either represent your, it's not easy to use this pen, by the way. So you might want to convert a specific portion in the beginning of your social security number, or some portion at the end. You might want to replace them with some asterisk symbols, or some portion in the middle, or leave the numbers in the middle, and convert these. This is an exercise that you should be able to convert a specific portion. What you're going to do is you're going to replace instead of displaying those numbers at the beginning, you just replicate this asterisk character as much as the given number. Let's ignore the for loop for time being. Let's say I have this social security ID and I want to print the social security ID replacing the first 6 symbols. Okay, I'm going to replace it by multiplying or replicating the hash sign. Let's use the hash sign. And then I'm going to append the remaining part of my social security number as social security ID slice. Start from the seventh symbol. Start from the seventh symbol, or let me see, my number is 25495. So I'm going to start with this position 6 because I have inserted 6 sharp symbols. Now I'm going to be at position 6 because the first one is at position 0. When I replace 6 symbols here, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the dash. I'm at this position. I'm going to display this entire remaining slice on my text. And if I start from here and go all the way to the end, I could leave the upper bound as empty, or I could simply write the remaining part of my social security, the length of my social security ID. They're both equal. And when I write this in this manner, this form, I'm going to have my social security number replacing the first 6 symbols, letters or numbers or dash symbols with the hash sign. I could simply do this by replacing the first and the last 6 characters. Now I need to specify this as, instead of the length of it, I have to specify it as length minus 6 because I am going to add 6 dash signs after this middle portion. When I run this code, it has replaced the initial 6 and the final 6 and left the middle part intact. You can also replace this part as, let's say, print the first 6 social security ID slice. I'm omitting the initial parts. It starts from 0. I'm going to go all the way through the first 6 symbols and append to that as much as len of my social security ID minus 12. I'm going to append this much of hash signs, and I am going to start from social security ID. I'm going to start from len of social security ID minus 12 and go all the way to the end. And I'm going to complete my number. I'm going to add this one. This is the first 6 characters, and I'm going to replace this part. It has appended something extra. Let me see this first. I want it to contain only, I've gone too far. Actually, I should start from minus 6. Now I have my number correct. Okay. And if I increase the length of my social security number, it's going to behave accordingly. So if you're interested only in leaving a specific part from the beginning and the end and replacing all the intermediate parts with hash sans, you can use this approach or any other approach you need. Just for make sure that you are using the correct index values for your slicing operator as the start and end parameters. So where's my end parameter here? This is the beginning index, and after that you specify an ending index. So this slice is going to start including the beginning index of the slice or the starting index of the slice, and it's going to go all the way up to the ending index, and that index is not being included in your slice. Let me check the remaining part. Okay, there are some methods that we can use with the strings. The upper method is for converting your string to all caps, all capital letters. So if you have this introduction to programming string, when you call upper on that course, let's say, it generates a new string. It doesn't overwrite the current variable. Okay, it generates a new string and returns that new string for you. After that, if you simply try to access the variable itself, it's going to return you the original form because that's another string. It hasn't been modified. Similarly, the lower function returns you the lower method, let's call it. When we are talking about instance functions, we are class functions, we call them methods. And if you run it for lower, it's going to convert your string to all small letters. And we also have the strip function, which removes the white space characters. White spaces are new lines, spaces, tabs. Okay, both from the beginning and end of the string, but it doesn't touch the white space inside the string that starts with an alphanumeric character. It only removes those from the beginning and end of the string. So we have this output. It says print the course itself. It has multiple new lines and spaces. So it's one space here and a new line. So there's a one space. It goes to the new line. There are multiple spaces before the I, for the initial I. And then there's another new line. It goes to the next line. And when you print this, it's going to output your string in between these set of dashes. So the course consumes 3 lines because it has 2 new lines inside the string. When you strip the course of its white space characters, it's going to generate a new string, but it's not going to modify the course itself. You know that. As in this case, this is the stripped version. It has removed the initial and following white space. How do I know it has removed the following? I can simply add another symbol after the stripped version and see that there is no space in between this one and that. It is inserted by this print function. So I could simply use a plus sign. Okay, now you can see that removing the auto version, the separator character from the print function, I can see that this initial, these white spaces following the last alphanumeric character in my string, which is G, they have been removed by strip. Also this initial part is also being removed. And then we can simply output both the stripped version and the original version. This is the original version, this is the stripped version, and this is the original version which has not been altered, modified by the strip function. Okay, producing these outputs. You can also use the replace function. The replace function searches a specific text and changes that part of the string with another one, and it also doesn't modify your original variable. Let's print it once again. Run. So I have this original form is Introduction to Programming with C++. Okay, with C++. Now I want to replace C++ with Java and then output that one. After that, I want to output the original form once again. So this is the original one. This is the modified one, and this is the original one once again. So the replace function searches for this string in your text and replaces it with the given string. If you have multiple, say slash, or let's write it like this, C++. Let's replace this with Java. So it replaces all entries that match this pattern. So if there are two C++ instances in your string, they are both going to be replaced by Java, as in this example. So the replace function simply replaces the given pattern with the new pattern. The second argument replaces the first argument with the second argument inside this string or this string. Okay. And you can also try to replace Java with Python in your course. Now this is the line. We tried to replace Java with Python, sorry. It did not replace anything because the original version does not have anything equal to Java. So the replace function cannot find Java, and it's not going to replace it with Python. So it's going to simply return the original string, which is this final line. Introduction to computing with C++. And if I make another variable, Java course, where I replace the C with Java, and then if I replace that Java from the Java course, okay, with Python, now I can output the converted version, which is being converted from C to Java, and then from Java we convert it to Python, but we don't output the Java course anywhere in the middle, so we directly see Python. From there you can also try to replace C++ directly with Python. It's also going to work because it can find C++ inside this course, which is this string, this entire string, and replace these two matches with Python, as in this case. So it's important where you search your text string, and if you look at the wrong instance of the string, you might not find it. If you want to run the replace function, it's not going to modify the current or the original form of your string, but instead it's going to return a new string for you. There's a split function that you can use to separate your strings into multiple pieces. So when you use split with a single space, it's going to return the individual sequence of characters or symbols that are separated by this single space. In this case, we have the course variable starting with a space. So the split function is going to split from here, generating an empty string, comma, the introduction to introduction, comma, to, comma, and so on. It's just going to remove all these spaces, and it's going to return these substrings that you can use as a list. So this is the list. You can simply iterate over those substrings. They might be words like this, or they might be some other sequence of alphanumeric characters, but the split function, as operated with the single space, not the underscore, is going to simply take the original list and divide it according to the given parameter, and it's going to remove these spaces from your string. The behavior is strange when you have two spaces. It's going to insert another empty string, as in this here, because it can split your original string using the single space. So when you split it with this single space in the beginning, it can obtain an empty string here, and when you split it using with space, because there's one space here, another space here, so it inserts another empty string in between these two spaces. If you had three, it would insert them as well. So careful when you're working on this type of data. If it's arriving from user input, you might want to implement some intelligent algorithms to replace all these double spaces, triple spaces, etc. with single spaces before you strip your data. In this case, we just don't want the initial and the final empty strings. We just strip our text, strip this code from the initial and final white spaces, and then apply the split on that eliminated version or stripped version, and then we can have a list of substrings. Let me make it bring it to the original form, removing this part. And if I run this now I have eliminated these initial and final empty strings. I only have the alphanumeric words or sequence of symbols at this line. And you can also split your string using another sequence of alphanumeric symbols, alphanumeric text, or you can have other string symbols such as these. Let's say you have the, let's say you have something else in your, you have a star in your string. If you want to split it with the star, you can also do that. Introduction to goes all the way to the star, the first, and after the star, this is the second part, introduction to programming with Python. So you can do that as well. And in this example, we have some list of courses, list of strings, introduction to programming with Python, Java, etc. You can all split them using the substring with. Okay, you know that the form of your course is introduction to programming with something. Again, the other one is also introduction to programming with another language, etc. So you might want to display the language of each course using this split function. If we have the output here. Okay, now these 3 lines correspond to my output. So it first outputs Python, because when you do it with itself only, it's going to cut the string from here, and this part also contains a space before the language name. Similarly, it contains a space before Java and after Java. If you do it only with, it's going to return the substring including the space before the before this language name. You can also split with space. Okay, there's a space after with. So if you split it from here, it's going to return you Python space, Java space as the second entry in your list. So this is a list of strings. For each one of these strings, this is the for loop, course name in course list. So it's going to first process this one, second process this one, and the third is going to process this one. At each one, each course name, introduction to programming with Python, it's going to split that with and output the first element. So this is the first element when you split with the keyword or substring with. for each one of them. This is why it's repeating itself 3 times. And we also have this Monty at python.org. You can also split your email address using the @ symbol. So you can retrieve the username from this string. And you can also have the domain. So when you split this email address, it's going to generate 2 elements, 2 substrings. This is the first, this is the second. Okay. The first one is going to be assigned to the username. The second one is going to be assigned to the domain, as you know from the multiple variable assignment. So this is generating a tuple, and it's assigning the first one to the first variable, second one to the second variable, and it simply outputs these values accordingly. You might use that username for some other purpose, to check it against your database records, etc. Okay. You can also find other methods and functionality corresponding to strings in these online addresses. Okay. String formatting is modifying the output of the print function with specifying a certain format. Let's see how it works. Let's just open the example first. So we have these 2 strings. Introduction to programming. This is the header for the, let's say, introductory course. And the advanced course might have the advanced programming pretext. So when we have these, when we want to concatenate all these to our introduction and advanced computing lessons, we might have this introduction to programming with the language. So the language is C, C++, Java, or Python. This for loop prints the result for us. You can also do it for the advanced course header. ADV course header. When you run this, the title changes accordingly. But you cannot concatenate strings to numbers directly, as you all know. So when you run this code, in order to execute this, let's just uncomment this part first. It's going to raise an error. Okay, it's going to raise an error that tells us you can only concatenate string to another string, but not an integer or a float. So you would attempt to convert the number to a string. It would work. So they are both strings, and you can concatenate them. Python 2, Python 3. Another way to handle this problem is to introduce formatting. So we have this template notation. Have this template notation that we can include in our string here. When we use the format function on our course header, it's going to replace this template area with the given number or given value. So it might be a number or a string, It's just simply going to fill in those gaps using the provided parameters. You might have multiple. Let's run this first. You might have multiple placeholders in your string. So this example has only one placeholder, and it can be formatted, and format means actually put in place or replace that gap, replace that area with the given value. It might be a string, number, whichever you need to insert at that position. But if you directly print this course header, print course header, as we didn't apply the format function, it's going to simply output the curly braces as well. So this is replaced only by the format function. If you output them using the format function, it's going to replace any template areas if you have them. So let's try it with multiple. Okay, introduction to programming with Python 2, 3, 4, Spring, etc. So it starts from all the way 2021 to 2025 and uses this information, semester, year, and version, to format this template string. Okay, it contains 3 pairs of curly braces. So the version is going to go into the first one, semester is going to go into the second one, and year is going to go into the last one. Introduction to programming with Python. The first one is 2. For Spring, this is the second one, and 2021, and so on. So it's going to replace those template areas with the given set of arguments. You can have as many arguments as necessary to format your initial string template using both curly braces and the format function. Okay. So you can also specify the order of those areas. If you don't specify any numbers in between these curly braces, this is going to be the first one, second one, and third one. But if you specify numbers inside those ones, the version is going to go into the position 0. Semester is going to go to 1. Year is going to go into 2. So the arguments, the order of arguments from the format function follow their indices inside the template. They are going to replace the curly braces where their order is provided. So let me go to the output. Now we have these. Let me just cancel this part and rerun the code. So in the earlier version, we had the version semester year, version semester year, fall. Let me find the print course header printed. Let's rerun this now. Fall. Okay, now I have my year, version, semester, and year. So I was expecting year to appear last. This is the last argument, but it has been provided as the second argument. So this is the first, this is the second, this is the third one. So this goes into this placeholder with its ordering index specified. So the 0 is going to be replacing this part, and the first is going to be replacing the third one because of these numbers specified in between these curly braces. And you can also use the format operator. Instead of using the format function, there's a format operator. You would remember the percentage sign where we used to obtain the modulo 5 mod 2 is 1. Okay, but in this context it has a different usage. Instead of taking the modulo, you cannot do it in strings. It's used for inserting these values from this tuple into their positions. First one goes into this one, second one goes into the second one, and third one goes into the third one. %d means that this is going to be an integer. %s means it's going to be a string. Okay, so this %d is going to be replaced by a number. %s is going to be replaced by a string, and similarly %d is again going to replace is going to be replaced by another number. So this is another use of formatting strings. So in formatting, you first specify a template. This is a template, okay, because it has placeholders like this. Or this is a template as well. It has placeholders. And then when you use either the format function or the format operator, which is the percentage sign, when you use it with a string and a tuple, okay, it's going to replace the placeholders with these values from the formatting operand, the tuple that's going to format your template. When you are working with floating point numbers, you might want to leave spaces like this. You might want to align your decimal point and leave sufficient amount of spaces before starting to print your number. So this is achieved by using a notation like this. %10.2f means the entire space it's going to consume will be 10 characters long. 2 of them are going to be used for the decimal part of the number, and there's also going to be a dot. So you will have at most 7 spaces left for your integer part. So it's going to align them. If you have a longer integer part, it's going to be shifted. It's not going to truncate the integer part, but you can also actually reserve space for strings, as in this case. Sorry, you have reserved space for Harry Potter. So we have reserved 15 character space for this string. So %15s means that this string area is going to be 15 characters long, at least. And if you want to output these aligned right, you might give that Harry Potter is account of Harry Potter is something like this, account of Frodo is something like this. We both align the strings and the numbers using this format specifier that we reserve the initial space for outputting our text and number in this floating point example. Let me see what we have here. Okay, we have the accounts of, so the account balance template is simply a floating point number. Account balance 2 has unspecified number of integer characters, but two numbers will be used for the decimal notation part, so it doesn't print very long numbers after the decimal point. If you don't specify the balance, so this is the account balance when it's output here, account balance, it has multiple numbers after the decimal point. When you format it with .2 without any integer part, it simply outputs, doesn't reserve any space for that number, but truncates the or rounds the decimal part, the numeric part after the decimal point. Similarly, if you do it for three numbers after the decimal point, it's going to round this part, so it becomes 675. If you specify the area to consist of 10 digits altogether, including the dot and the decimal part, this is going to reserve this part for your number. And okay, if you have this balance list and format it accordingly, balance for 124, they are all going to be aligned vertically because they are all adhering to the same template, the account balance underscore 10 to 2. So this is just a variable name. Okay, the template contains this floating point formatting. So when you format all these numbers according to this template, account balance 10 to 2, it's going to output all those numbers aligned under each other with respect to the decimal point. You can also have this total. You might have to specify a different formatting for the total because the numbers might not fit in 10 spaces. It might be a longer area, so you might want to use another larger integer area for your total. And also you might have this dictionary. Harry Potter has this much of money, Frodo has this much of money, Batman has a lot more money for in their bank accounts. So if you format them using this string placeholder and this floating point placeholder, although they have longer decimal numbers, they are all going to be truncated or rounded to 2 digits, and the output is simply going to be aligning these one after the other, just a vertical alignment. And you can use any other types of formatting depending on your application requirements.